Hey guys, Stomach7 here. Today going to be an Apex Season 6 video. Usually do these types of videos for every season. Took me a while to get to it with Season 6 because, to be completely honest, I had a little bit of a slow start with Season 6 and also been working on a bunch of different stuff with the stream recently. Part of the reason why there hasn't been as many of the YouTube videos is because I usually don't do YouTube videos for Gwent, and I've been sticking up with, and maybe I'll change that. But I've been sticking with the Gwent grind this entire season. I wanted to actually try to go for a Gwent season and try to push my rating in it, and that's what I've been doing. And I stuck with it pretty well until this last week or so because there were so many announcements to pay attention to. COD Champ started, and Apex Season 6 as well. So I wasn't too surprised at falling off a little bit in the last week, and I think I'm going to rebound for the last week of August here, go hard for this last week so I can close out that season because I've been working at it for the month. But yeah, so that's basically what I've been doing on stream for August. There's been a lot of different stuff too. Like it's been a pretty fun month to be completely honest. Like this has been one of my favorite stream months of maybe like the year, or like recently. By recently I mean like the last year and a half or so. I know that's not really recent, but I guess for me, I don't know, it all kinds of, like when you do like similar stuff on stream, it all kind of blends together to a point. But yeah, for the last year and a half or so, this has been one of my favorite stream months, I think. Been switching things up and been doing things a little bit differently, and it's been really fun and really satisfying, so that's good to see. But anyways, not the topic of this video. We can go over more stuff like that in another video, or maybe even a podcast, because it is definitely time to do another one. And I think I said this going in, I don't intend on like keeping it too regular, like every week or something like that. But I do think it is time to do another one, and I have plenty of different topics that we could do. Yeah, we have a lot of stuff saved up. We could do quite a few, so expect another one of those. I would say this week, hopefully, like Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. It might. I mean, honestly, I don't know. Thursday probably works the best. We'll see. But I think Thursday probably works the best. So expect another podcast on Thursday, or maybe Friday if we need to do it then. Anyways, now that we got all that stuff out of the way, lining stuff up here, let's get into the topic of the video. So every season, I always do a video like this where I go over my initial thoughts and impressions on the season. I just always do it. This has been a very consistent thing for like the entirety of Apex, pretty much. And I'm not like, to give context, I'm not the most regular player of this game. Like there are some people that play games and I swear they just play like one game, maybe like two games. Like there are so many. Like I consider myself a shooter fan, and that I play a lot and like almost all of the different shooters, and if there's a shooter that comes out, I'll try it. That is not the case for everybody, for sure. There are a lot of people that stick to one game. There are a lot of people that will just play something like Counter-Strike. There are a lot of people that only play Halo. There are a lot of people that only play something like Apex. That is not me. I switch between everything. I play everything, and there's benefits to that in that you develop a very wide perspective and like skill set. But the other like downsides to it is that, you know, to the specific game, I guess, like people, if they just play Apex, that's the only shooter they play, they might learn more nerdy stuff about Apex. But if you play a bunch of different games, you'll have the advantage in that you have a wider perspective, wider skill set. I just wanted to lay that context out because I am definitely the latter. Like I play multiple types of shooters, multiple types of games in general. I've always considered myself a gamer and not a first-person shooter player, which is funny because if you watch the stream and stuff like that, how competitive I am with it, you might think that that's like this is all I play, but it's not. I play a bunch of different types of stuff. I mean, hell, the stream this month has been like a Gwent focused stream basically for the most part. Like I hardly played FPS on stream for like the first 3 weeks of August. It was like an extended break, one of the longest breaks I've had for a while. I mean, honestly, like the last 2 months of the summer have kind of been like that. Like I've played here and there, but you know, not too much. I think that break helped a lot, and kind of like refreshed everything and gave me like a more clear perspective on everything, and it'll hopefully, you know, make my insight in this video a little bit better. But anyways, that was a long tangent, but hopefully everything made sense. Time to get to like the main topic here. So like season 6. Basically, this is what it comes down to for me. I like a lot of the changes. God, I just like dropped something on my desk. I like a lot of the changes, but there's like 1 to 2 of the changes that I think are like the biggest, the most important, the most impactful changes that I am not the biggest fan of. So this is what it comes down to for me. I like the crafting. I like the map changes. That team got destroyed, by the way. I like the crafting. I like the map changes. That stuff is great. It's new. It's fresh. I really like the crafting, actually. So like, I love how they decided to work the crafting where the items that are in it are not in the loot pool. I think that that's a very creative way to keep the game fresh, because the problem with Apex, and Matt was talking about this last night, and I think I agree, is that it gets to this point where it's like the same meta, and when you're in our lobbies, when you're in our SBMM lobbies, you're not going to have people at the lower ranks of pubs. I can't believe I'm saying something like that in 2020, but this is the world that we live in. When you play with people that are in the lower ranks of pubs, you'll get more variety. You'll get people like trying out guns. You'll get people that don't play the game as regularly, and they're just trying to like experience things, experiment with things, try stuff out. Use like flatlines more often, just trying to figure them out. Use like snipers, stuff like that, an L-star or something. They'll be like, oh, what's the L-star? Let me try this. When you play in our lobbies, that's not really the case. Like, you pretty much just see, for the most part, like the same 2 to 4 guns over and over again. Like, you're gonna hear Volts, you're gonna hear Prowlers, you're gonna hear triple takes, and like wingmans. And other than like those guns, like that's the majority of what you hear. You don't hear too much else like other than that, and that gets really stale. And I feel like the game has been like that for a while. Like, even with balance changes, even with you know, them improving guns and nerfing other guns and adding new guns to the pool, I feel like it was still, you know, like a lot of R9, a lot of wingman, like even through nerfs and buffs, like just kind of similar stuff with some changes here and there. Like, you know, the Havoc was really good for a while, but I think this crafting system is a really good way to mix things up with that. So like, for example, they put a gun, this was the first time, I don't know if it was the first day that the season was out, maybe it was the second day, but the loot that they had in the replicator, which is what they call like the crafting unit, I guess, was the Prowler and the Select-Fire. And the Prowler was one of the guns that I just mentioned of like the last 2 seasons that has just been like, it's just like always the Prowler. You're just tearing Prowlers, Select-Fires every game. What I liked about that is that day I hardly encountered Prowlers. And this was also, again, it was the first or second day of the season, so people weren't using the crafting as much. Like, I'll even admit I wasn't using it very much in the very beginning. But now that we've gotten used to it, now that we've played it a bit, I go for it. I go for the crafting. I try to take advantage of it, especially like the other day I played, there was purple backpack was one of those things. And, like, inventory space was always an issue, so because of that, I was always going for the crafting. I really wanted that purple backpack. It's really important. Makes the game a lot easier, I think. Yeah, I like how just putting an item, putting a gun in the loot pool, in the replicator, and like taking it out of the floor loot can just like drastically change the game for the day that it is played. Which for competitive, I'm not sure how it works for competitive for ranked. It seems like a bad thing. I don't think that's a good thing for that. But for pubs, it is amazing. It is amazing to just have that little addition of the crafting system and taking the items that are in the replicator out of the loot pool for the day of the week that they're in. You know how much that changes the gameplay. I actually love it, and it makes every day be like a slightly new meta, or like a slightly different meta that you have to kind of like adapt to for that day. And I actually really enjoy that. I think that's a lot of fun. So the crafting is great. I could talk more about it. Maybe I'll do a whole video focused on it, but I could talk more about it. But I want to move on here. The map changes, just like really quickly, just to briefly go over them. I don't want to like talk too specifically about them. But the map changes are pretty great too, and this is something that like I don't have much to say because they always kind of nail it. I think Apex's map changes have been pretty good for the most part, and I usually don't have much to complain about. And this is another case where I don't have much specific to say because I just think they're good. Like they're in smart spots to add more options for rotations. The new POIs are really fun and different. Like they're actually new. It's not like they reused assets. Like they're actually different parts about them. Like these platforms that you can like raise up and stuff like that. It's actually new, which is really cool. Instead of just like reusing old assets. And yeah, they're really fun to fight in, and I like the map changes. They're good. World's Edge is a lot better. The one complaint, I think I've said this since Season 3, is that Train Yard still sucks. And they did make some changes to the train cars above Train Yard that make it a little bit better, a little bit more accessible. But personally, I would still prefer that instead of trying to make it work, just get rid of it. I think it just doesn't work. I really hate that part of the map. Train Yard has always been my least favorite part of World's Edge, my least favorite part of either map on Apex. I hate it. I think it's absolutely awful, and I think they should just blow it up. I think they should just blow it up and redo it, because it's like the one part of, I actually don't mind World's Edge now. Like with these new maps change, I think World's Edge is like pretty solid overall. I think these map changes are really good. A lot more cover, stuff like that to go around. Removing the train too. Removing the train actually made things a lot better. I wasn't sure how that's gonna play out, but removing the train and adding like the extra cover along the train tracks, way better. Way better. Actually makes the map play out a lot better in some of those choke points with the train locations. So I actually really like that too. Even though the train was like a unique part of the map, I do think it makes the map play better, so I'm cool with it. So anyways, map change is good, and Train Yard's the only one that I wish they would just like blow up, but other than that, everything else is pretty good. Weapon changes. This is a negative. I don't necessarily like all the weapon changes. I don't like putting the R9. I hate, actually, I should say that. This is like one of the worst changes of the patch. I hate the switch up of the R9 and the Devotion for being like the drop weapon. The Devotion always should have been a drop weapon. It never should have been taken out of the care package. I mean, somebody pulled a quote from the Season 4 patch notes where the Apex devs literally said, like, oh, this gun needs to be a drop gun, it's way too strong. And then they just bring it back and put it back into the floor loop. The R9, don't get me wrong, was a gun that was way too frequent, and it was definitely, like, I love the R9, it's one of my favorite guns in any game. But don't get me wrong, it was definitely getting boring. It was definitely getting boring. You know, everybody was using it. It was always something you're looking for. Everybody was always looking for it. Light ammo, so prevalent, going around everywhere. You always expect light ammo, you always expect R9s everywhere. But it was getting kind of boring. And the game could have used some spice. The game could have used something to switch it up. And I think they could have achieved that with the crafting system, you know? Just have the R9 be like the crafting weapon for a couple days or something. It'll switch it up. It'll make a difference, you know? It'll mix things up, and it could work out like that. Or make some balancing changes to it again if you really want to. But in my opinion, I don't think you needed to do that, because I thought the R9 was pretty balanced. I think the R9 was one of the more balanced guns in the games. Like in the game, like, yes, it's very strong when you are good with it and when you use it well. But when you don't, it's bad. Like, when you miss 8 shots in an R9 mag, which is not hard to do, not hard to miss, you're already, like, at a very low chance, if you miss, like, the first 8 shots, of killing somebody with, like, full red armor. Like, it's probably not going to happen. And that's the thing with the R9. I thought it was pretty well balanced. Like, yes, it was very strong, but you needed to be incredibly precise with it. And I thought that balanced it pretty well. The Volt, on the other hand, and the Devotion, not the case. Not the case. Like, the time to kill on the R9, the theoretical time to kill, might be slightly better than these guns, but I think these guns are way better than the R9 overall, because they're way more forgiving. Like, they're maybe slightly worse than, like, the ceiling of the R9, but the floor is so much higher. So much higher. They're so much more forgiving. And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing for the game. Now, we're getting close to the end of this gameplay. Again, we'll probably do a podcast on it, because there's going to be more to talk about. The other change is the armor. This is a big one. We'll get into this at the very end. I do not like the armor, like, you could just say time to kill, because it, you know, it basically adjusts the time to kill. If you lower the amount of armor, you're adjusting the time to kill, essentially, directly. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of it. I'm still not a fan of it. I was very opinionated the first day of Season 6, and I've gotten over it since then. I still enjoy it. It's still Apex. Like, I'll still play it, but I still don't like it. I wouldn't mind if they just reverted the armor changes. I like the Evo Shield change, but even then there are negative aspects of that. And to be honest, like, I've just barely scratched the surface in this video. We'll just have to do a podcast on it, so expect that. That'll come out for sure. And we'll go through all these things. We'll do the tier lists and all that stuff. Like, we'll go through everything. But like, for now, just like, I'm still liking Season 6 because it is still Apex, but I'm still very strongly against the shield changes. I think everything else they did was pretty good, but I think they just, like, changed the game at a base level, like, too much. Just, like, too much at once, and I think they should look into making some adjustments there. I honestly think the game would play... I think the game with the rest of these adjustments would play really well if they moved the armor back to normal. I think it'd play so good if they just did that. So, we'll see what happens. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Look forward to the podcast, and see you next time.